My name is Raj Vancia, and I'm one of the TAs for CS6440, and today we'll be going over a basic overview on how to get started with Jupyter Notebooks using Google Colab's platform. So here are some learning objectives, and this will be very helpful for your mini project too. And as stated in the instructions, you are also able to use R for your data analysis. But in this video, we'll be kind of going over Jupyter Notebooks and using them within the Google Colab platform. And Google Colab is pretty good. It allows you to run these Python notebooks essentially into the cloud, so you don't have to worry about downloading anything to your computer, and it could be all done remotely. And that helps kind of level the playing field, just in case if you have if you don't really know how to set it up on your PC yourself. And in this video, we'll be going over some basic kind of examples on how to set up your notebook and some pretty easy functions to kind of get you started for your mini project too. So kind of more specifically, we'll be going over the basic Markdown syntax to help you write within your notebooks. Essentially, it allows you to have some rich text editing, and we'll be also learning how to kind of import some Python libraries to your notebook. So if you want to use Matplotlib or pandas as well, you can kind of import these Python libraries. And we'll be showing you how to import some CSV data. In this video, I'll be using some clean data, basically from a synthetic data set for COVID-19 patients. And then lastly, we'll show you how to visualize and plot data in your notebook using Matplotlib. And before we get started, here are some helpful links to kind of get you started. The first link is to the Google Colab's platform, and some other links that we have is for help you with Markdown, Matplotlib, pandas, and then also if you do want to deploy locally, you can utilize Jupyter as well. All right, so let's go to the Google Colab website to create a new notebook here. So here we'll just create a new notebook. So here we'll want to, we could rename it to anything here, so test CS6440. And one of the things for Google Colab's notebooks and Python notebooks is that you could utilize Markdown to display text as part of your notebook, and that way you could really delineate each of the different steps that you've taken as part of your data analysis. So it does utilize Markdown. So let's create a new text. We'll make a title slide here. So the hashtag in Markdown will be a header 1. And we can also bold CS6440. And what's also cool about Google Colab's notebook is that it actually renders in real time, to the right. So if you are making any stylistic changes, you kind of see it in real time. So let's first delete this code row. And you could add, code and text. So code line that essentially allows you to create a line where you could write code and you could execute it, utilizing this play button. So in this case, we're going to be actually importing a couple of packages that I'll be using. So we'll be importing pandas, and then we'll also be importing Matplotlib. We're only going to be using a PyPlot for this demo here. So now we could actually run this code, and what this will do is it'll execute the code within this row. So it'll import these packages here for you. So we're just waiting for it to connect. So you can see here it's connected to your remote backend there. So let's try that one more time. So that loaded. So next thing that we'll be doing is we'll be loading some CSV data. So you can see here we have some, Google Colab has some sample data for you to work with, but we'll be kind of uploading our own here. So let's take a look. So we got some COVID-19 survival outcome data. So this data is kind of synthetically generated, and it's already cleaned for us, so it makes it a little bit easier. So before we add any code, what we could do is we could kind of add a description as well. So we could just say loading All right, so now a basic function in with pandas that allows you to do is allows you to kind of import a CSV into a data frame. So let's call this data frame COVID outcomes, and then so we have pandas, and we'll use the read function for CSV. So now what's cool is that we could just take the file path here and then just paste it. And for pandas, so our data does have headers. So we'll in the row that our headers is in is row 0. So that that allows us to create to distinguish in the data frame that the first row is a header row. So depending on the data that you use, this could either be none, so it doesn't have any headers, or it could be normally it's row 0 for that. So now what we could do is we could kind of display the first 15 rows of our data frame here. So basically allowing this, adding this text allows, someone else, who's reading, your notebook to kind of understand what your thought process is and kind of what you're doing when you're kind of going through your data analysis. So now let's add some code to display the first 15 rows. So we'll take our data frame that we just made. Actually, before that, we'll actually have to run this code. So let's say we've got an invalid syntax. Okay, so I just forgot to put it in quotes. So let's add that. So that's pretty nice. It gives you, if you are running some errors, it allows you to fix them here. All right, so that looks a little bit better. So now and what's also good, it offers some code completion too, so that made it a little bit easier. So we'll use the head function, and you'll input a number. And this is also a neat feature too for Google Colab, which allows you to kind of have a little description of that function. So in this case, returns the first n rows. So we'll do 15 for that. So let's see what kind of data we're working with here. So you can see here that we have our header row. We specified that the first row. So we got it. You have different ages, genders, and then the survival rate. Based off of these different age groups as well as genders. So for this kind of basic example, and this data is already cleaned, like mentioned before. What we'll do is we'll kind of see, depending on the age group for the male, as well as COVID severity is critical. We want to see what the survival rate is for that demographic. So let's add another kind of function here. So what we could do now is we'll filter our data frame for only critical patients, and then let's see, with pandas, it allows us to make that a lot easier. So let's call this maybe critical groups. So essentially what we're doing is we're just filtering based off of this. So now we could select this column, so COVID-19 severity. So which is, again, it's pretty nice because it does offer some code completion here. All right, and then we'll want to do equals, and then we'll just want critical. And we'll just close this off. All right, so now we've got the basically critical groups. So let's now filter out anything that's any patients that's a male here. So we'll add that. So we'll be keeping anything. So we could name this maybe critical groups and underscore male. So we use that same kind of type of pattern here where we're just essentially filtering out, instead of COVID severity, we're going to be doing a gender here. So let's do that. And then in our data set, gender is denoted as .m for male. So let's run this. All right. So now next that we have our data frame that essentially, and what we could do is we could actually now display some of the data that we have in a tabular form to see kind of what we're working with. So you can see here, we only have these age groups. They're only male, and then they're only critical. So the last thing that we'll be showing you how to do is how to actually, plot this using Matplotlib. So basically we'll be plotting COVID-19 patients based on age group for critical severity. So now, as you remembered, we imported, the plyplot library here. So we'll just do plt. So we're making a bar chart in this case. So you'll be doing the x-axis as well as the y. So x-axis in this case will be our age groups here. and we only want to take the age column. So our y-axis, again, will be our survival rate, so this column right here. So basically, what's the survivorship rate for these patients? And one thing that you'll notice too is that these, we want to convert these into a percentage. So what we could do actually is multiply it by 100 to get a percentage. And then we could also denote the color of these bar charts through, we could make it blue in this case. All right. So we still have a little bit more left to do for Matplotlib. So we want to label the axis of our bar chart. And in this case, what we could do is x-axis is just the age group. So let's do the y-axis, and the y-axis in this case is the survival rate here. And it'll be in percentages. All right, we could also add a title for this plot as well, and that will help make it a little bit more professional looking. So this will be for male patients. And we also want to add that critical for severity reasons. All right, and the last thing that we want to do is, which is a pretty neat feature for these Python notebooks, is that we could actually render this plot within the notebook itself, and that allows you to, you could save this as a PDF and it will output the plot. So let's see, try to output this, and one thing I forgot, so I'm just gonna make this. So it's pretty nice, get some errors, kind of quickly fix that. All right, nice. So you can see here that, we've outputted our graph, we have our labels, and then we have, the data displayed pretty nicely. And obviously, your project will be going a lot more detail and probably have multiple graphs as well. But you can see here that you kind of quickly eyeball it and see that as age groups go a little bit higher, there's a lot more or less chance that the patients will survive. So that's kind of really a basic kind of primer for Jupyter notebooks and using Google Colab. You learn how to download some data into your notebook through pandas, and how to utilize data frames and Matplotlib to plot your data. So now what you could actually do is you could save this. You could save this as like an IPython notebook as well, and you could use that to if you do want to use this same code and locally and using Jupyter, you could actually just download it as IPython notebook, and it will actually run without any issues there. And additionally, what you could also do is you could actually print to PDF. You could save it as a PDF, and that will save your document in a report format here. So you can kind of see the output, with the bar chart and everything like that. So I hope you enjoyed that basic introduction to Google's Colab, and hopefully that helps you out with your mini project.